Welcome y'all to Backwoods Obscura, a podcast dedicated to the lore, legends, and myths surrounding the creatures that may lurk in your backyard. My name's Hewitt.
I'm Chris.
Hey Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm making it. You know, long week, but...
Same. Y'all might be hearing in the background why I'm up at 3 or 4 a.m. every morning. It's not the cryptids.
It's never the cryptids, really. I sleep through the cryptids.
Bigfoot's at your window. You got any mayo?
I need $1.
But anyway, yeah, so it's... I got early mornings / late nights. It depends on how you look at it. But, so, I got one for you. Have you heard of Comte de Saint Germain?
I don't think I have, actually.
Okay, have you heard him called Count Jacques Saint Germain?
I've heard of Saint Germain. I think that is, but I don't know what it's about. I just know it's...
I mean, there's a couple places you could have. I mean, there's the story I'm going to tell you about. There's the liqueur named Saint Germain.
Oh, yeah,
and there's
of
also
course.
Saint Germain from the Castlevania series, games and movies.
Oh.
Introduced in season 3, he was the most interesting man alive because he knew what toilet paper was.
I need to finish that series. I'm like a third of the way through season 2.
It's season 2 where they go up against Dracula. Dope. Season 3 and season 4, still really good. It gets a little lulled, and then they bring it right back. They bring in, like, with that one, they take the original Castlevania 3 for a lot of it, but then they start bringing in a little bit of Lords of, I think it's Lord of Shadows, which was almost a direct sequel to it. But anyway, before I get distracted with that, Count Saint Germain is New Orleans' supposed ranking vampire lord.
Oh, okay. So that's where I heard it from.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned him several times. I've used him in the Dresden game that I run off stream for some of the members of TBA. But before I talk to you about the vampire story, I'm going to tell you about the real, possibly real, we don't know if it's his name, Count Jacques Saint Germain. Because the human character that may or may not have become a vampire is so freaking interesting because it's just weird.
Okay, so is his name really Count? Does he really have...
That's something we're going to talk about. There's some suspicious stuff about good old Jacques.
Okay, well, let's get into it.
So he was born sometime between 1691 and 1712. We're not sure. He was a European adventurer, an alchemist, and a spiritualist.
So he was just like a medicine man of the era.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. We'll go with that.
Well, and I say like medicine loosely here. We're talking about like the late 1600s, early 1700s. So
yeah, we're talking about the early 1700s here.
It's like not even miasma theory was really a thing yet.
Well, we're still looking at the humors and leeches at this point a little bit.
Mm.
But he had multiple aliases. He was the Marquis de Montferrand. He was Comte Bellemare, Count Weldon, Comte Sokotov, or Prince Francis II Rákóczi of Transylvania.
I mean, okay, so wait. I'm not European, but some of those names are kind of feel jumbled together.
So there's a Marquis, lesser noble. Comte is the French word for count. And then Prince, he was supposedly the crown prince of the King of Transylvania, Francis I. Illegitimate son, by the way. His dad would never claim him in 1,000 years.
Okay, yeah. I see what kind of guy this might be.
Yeah, in my notes, sus. Also, there were claims that he might be 500 years old. Voltaire. So this dude, he's real. He was real.
Yeah.
As in, he walked and talked and met people.
He was a flesh and blood person.
Right. And he met Voltaire, who called him the man who cannot die and knows everything.
Well, that's I mean, if Voltaire said it.
High society loved this dude. He had tall tales. He knew things about science. He knew things about manufacturing. He seemed to be a dude who knew a little bit about everything and knew how, like, this is a motherfucker that put, like, all his points in charisma.
Like, it feels like it almost feels like he's trying to be like a Renaissance man in a way.
A little bit more like Enlightenment man. Like he's really
Yeah,
riding that. I mean, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Well, this would be before the Enlightenment, would it be? Or
Right in the Enlightenment period.
okay. Yeah,
But
the 1700s, I guess. Yeah.
But I get what you mean with the Renaissance man.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off with that.
Damn you, Hewitt.
Damn me. But here's the deal. Was he a con man? Or was he actually the Prince of Transylvania trying to avoid the Habsburgs who were trying to incorporate the territory? And his father had sent him away to keep him safe. I'm going to lean towards con man, but this other one makes a really good... Like, listen to the story for this background. Listen to this dude's pedigree and education, his vita, if you will. So apparently he was educated by the Les Medici as a tutor. He also attended the University of Signa in Italy. So he got a really good education. Again, he might be the heir to the Transylvania throne. But also, he has credibility with this education because he seems to know
a lot of things.
Much. So by 1740, he is going by Count Jacques de Saint Germain. He also contributed to music and playwrights in England. Like, this dude could pick up an instrument and supposedly listen to it by ear and then play it fairly decently too, if not well. He was also apparently a polyglot, which means, he could just learn languages, which I'm jealous of that. Like, I barely speak the one that I was born with. Now, this dude also has a resume that's, he's got a resume for some folks that he worked for. He worked as a diplomat and a advisor, in quotation marks, for Louis XV of France. He did some envoy work for him.
I mean, he's getting around. I mean, if anyone's getting around like this, either they got like a 25 in charisma, or they have some credentials they can just pull out of nowhere.
Pretty much, yeah. But also, he is going to set up factories in the Netherlands making glass. Which that's not like he actually knew how to make glass and to do like leaded glass and also do ceramics. So like when he got done working for Louis, he went to the Netherlands and started working in factories or opening factories.
Again, going back to like the man of many talents sort of thing, like the Renaissance man.
Very, very much so.
Like it seems like he's just jumping around. He knows all these things about different little things. And then he's like, yeah, I know how to play instruments and blow glass. And now I'm going to make a factory. Where did he have like the capital to do that? I mean, I guess that's
he always got investors. He would throw some money around. Like occasionally he would drop a diamond, but that diamond had come from Louis XV. So there's some, like, he supposedly was wealthy, and it was always in another banker. He has to go get a promissory note because he doesn't carry it on him because you don't want somebody to steal it. You know what I mean? So I mean, and from there he ends up working or creating a factory for the Prince Charles of Hesse-Kassel. He's in Germany, and they're secret society buddies. And I'll get into the secret society stuff, but I mean, it's the 1700s. He's hanging out with rich European nobles.
Yeah,
they're in these groups. This is when the Illuminati actually existed, not the bullcrap people talk about today.
Yeah, and I imagine like him just like basically just going in there and just like blowing smoke up these people's asses and making them feel really important.
Oh yeah, 100%. And this is the reason why a lot of people think he's a con man, because he quote unquote died in 1784.
Wait, so
he quote unquote died in 1774. There is a grave for him, but there's some weird stuff about the grave.
So 1770 or 17?
Sorry, 1784. 1784.
Yeah,
I misspoke.
So that would make him roughly in his 80s or 90s when he died.
Yeah, somewhere between his 70s and 90s. So
big gap there.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't know.
But that's
if he was,
still. That's,
I mean, there's a 20-year time period for when he might have been born.
Yeah, I mean, still 70 years old. That's pretty good for those days.
That's pulling a Franklin. That's definitely pulling a Ben Franklin who lived to be like 80. Anyway, when they started going through his estate, all they found were paid receipts and unpaid receipts. They never found the gold. They never found the jewels. They never found any of that. But he always told stories that, again, he didn't keep it on him. It was in a bank. And he didn't bank with normal folks. He banked with the Swiss, who had procedures. Now, to be fair, these Swiss banks, especially in the 1700s, did have procedures, and if you weren't on the account,
you ain't getting in.
Doesn't matter how well you knew the deceased type situation. Now,
so is this a situation where like everybody was like, it was like a treasure hunt situation where everyone's after his
for a little
gold?
while, yeah, there were several folks that tried to track down, but kind of the conclusion was this dude had to have been, probably was like the real point was that Saint Germain probably was the illegitimate son of a noble who, while not claimed, his father sent him to get an education. And then he had to make his way in the world, and so he was a very smart man, a very skilled man, but it's one of those that he also had an expensive lifestyle, and this is a trope we've heard in so many stories. It's like even in like Game of Thrones, the dude in Quarth, like they open up his vault and the vault's actually empty. It's not a spoiler if the book's 25 years old. I stand by that the book's 25 years old and the TV show that episode hasn't played for a decade. It's not a spoiler.
No, I'm just thinking about the age of that. Damn.
Yeah. So, I mean, so there's a good chance that all he was one of the best con men of the 18th century. Now, he was into some odd stuff, but let's be honest, rich white dudes are always into odd stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and we're talking about the 1700s here. While spiritualism wasn't a thing, it was like, when you think of spiritualism, you usually think of like 1850 to like 1920. That's
true. Like the modern, like, gives birth to the Dunwich Horror type spiritualism.
Yeah, but I imagine he was into some spooky things.
Well, I mean, it's like the Masons, and then Ben Franklin was in the Hellfire Club, which was rich British people who went out to a cave, got drunk, and had sex.
I remember a Ghost Hunters episode where they go to the Hellfire Club area to do an investigation, and they played it up like, this is where they did satanic rituals. It's like, no, they probably just drank and had sex.
They probably had a devil costume on just because, ooh, look at me, I'm wearing a devil's mask. It's the same shit for swingers at like a Halloween party.
Except these were rich white British guys.
Yeah, and the ladies of the evening that they brought with them that were sworn to secrecy, and plus Ben Franklin, who didn't keep anything fucking secret.
Do you think Jack the Ripper was in the Hellfire Club?
Maybe, because there's the chance that, and we could talk about that one later once we've exhausted all of our local type stuff, but there's a chance Jack the Ripper became the King of England, because he might have been the oldest son of Queen Victoria.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's talks about that, but there's also a chance it could be his illegitimate son that was also that.
Well, getting back
to what we're talking about, Saint Germain held the title of Ascended Master and was known for being a spiritualist and a New Age teacher back in the 1700s. So this is like old school New Age, which old New Age sounds weird to say. But after his death, because he was into this stuff, and he was in like the dude who was in every weird club. I get some Aleister Crowley vibes from this guy, just a little bit, with some of the things that he was into.
Or like Anton LaVey was just a spooky atheist, but
yeah, but you know, like let's go to alternate religions. Let's look at ancient lost knowledge. It's the reason why, and I know you love Egyptian stuff, but every time someone starts like Egyptian this, Egyptian that, I'm like, oh my god, is it real, or did you find like crystals at Books A Million?
Well, yeah, that's half of like Egyptian. Like when someone brings up anything Egyptian, it's usually like bullshit.
I hold, like, when anybody brings that type of stuff out, it's one of those of, I don't want to be mean and I don't want to judge you. However, I am both being mean and judging you at the moment, and I apologize. I'm trying to be better about that, but you also just tried to sell me some grade A hogwash. And if you actually believe in that, prescribe to that, I'm not trying to belittle it. I'm talking about like the people who, like, it's like the ancient alien theory type stuff, like the old school.
Or spirit science, like that, where they're like, yeah, there's holes in your brain, and you gotta channel the vortex in your chakra. It's like, what the fuck is this?
Okay, let me rephrase it. I really dislike it when like white dudes and white ladies like appropriate like they read a magazine that
Oh,
mentioned
yeah.
Egypt once, and then they tried to base like a whole New Age religion off of it.
So cultural appropriation, like in
And
a
also
sense.
the scam religion stuff.
Yeah.
That popped up. Like, remember, like in the 90s when they had the infomercials for like the energy of Ra type things.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to disparage anybody who actually still worships the old gods. It's just that I dislike it when someone tries to appropriate it to hawk something.
Yeah.
And this guy kind of gives me some vibes like that, kind of like Crowley did. Or like he was, the power that he got from it by being in charge of a group kind of thing. But once he died, a whole bunch of weird stories started coming up. Because remember, he made okay, I'm pretty sure he got drunk. I'm 500 years old. That's how I know all of this. I'm sure, but then he said it so many times, people go, well, hold on. So there's a theory he was Francis Bacon from the late 1500s, early 1600s, the British philosopher, and if you've played video games, a lot of times time traveler. He's supposed, he might have invented the alchemist stone. That's actually one of the things that not Voltaire, but one of the things that Saint Germain was believed to have done is to have created.
So
the alchemist stone.
So he killed a bunch of people to make.
No, not it's not FMA style level.
Okay.
It could be. Anyway, also there's a chance he was Shakespeare. People thought he was Shakespeare because he was such a good playwright. And
so he was a playwright too.
Yeah, he could. He was, like you said, he's a Renaissance man. But the thing is that.
Wait, let me ask you this: are there any of his plays today?
I think it was more like he added. I think he made. He zhuzhed everything up just a little bit, and everybody thought it was amazing.
He's like the gravy on the rice.
No, he did. He did create some songs. I didn't write them down, but if you go online, you can find that he did write music, and it was, like I said, he was rumored to be able to just play just about anything after just messing with it for a little bit. Now, people claim to have met him in the 1800s, the 1900s, and all the way to 2011, they've claimed that they've met.
So there's
Saint Germain.
There's actual encounters.
Right. Well, also late 1800s spiritualists. Someone like, I am Saint Germain, and the next thing you know, all the rich Gilded Age ladies are now coming to his seminar and buying the Tony Robbins of the era.
I'm just picturing Houdini in the 1900s, like going up to a dude, beating the shit out of him. It's like, you ain't Saint Germain.
Pretty much. But also, there's claims that he might even been the Greek poet Hesiod or Merlin. So, after he died, people just fed into this and fed into this and fed into this because this was just a weird dude. He was Mr. Bullshit for the 1700s for French and European high society. He knew a whole lot. He was skilled. He had a lot of abilities.
And when it comes to his death, people knew that he died? Or
most people accepted that he died, but other people are like, oh, that he didn't die. You couldn't kill Voltaire. He's the man that can never die. So they wouldn't be surprised if Saint Germain, oh, he died. Wait till the next party when he comes, dude. It's gonna be killer. He'll probably pop out of a coffin.
Okay, so it was that sort of thing.
There's some people that probably believe that, but there's a lot of people that also that dude straight up is just dead. Because there's people who hated him because they felt he was a con man, and let's be honest, he probably
was.
Akram's razor. He was.
And I imagine just people out of sheer spite. There were a lot of haters out there that someone like that is going to steal the oxygen in the room. So there's probably a lot of people that's like, I wish he was fucking dead.
Yeah. Now here's the deal, though. I think that's what leads into the actual supernatural story, and what connects him back to Louisiana. So there's all this weird stuff about him, and then all of a sudden in 1902, in New Orleans, this flamboyant Frenchman who goes by the name Jacques Saint Germain. I was about to say Jaquez again because I talked about him in one of my classes, and my kid's like, that's not Jacques, that's Jaquez. I go to school with a Jaquez. And I'm like, okay, we will call him that. But Jacques de Saint Germain all of a sudden is in New Orleans in 1902. And he immediately is throwing huge parties with all the rich people of New Orleans. Sounds very familiar. He has wild stories of all these crazy things he's done in the last little while because, he survived at least 40 years. He was in his 40s, if not 50s when he showed up. So he survived No, he was like around when Napoleon III was the Emperor of France, the Third Empire, the Second Empire, and like the Franco-Prussian Wars, and like the dealing with the unification of Germany. Like he had all these wild stories, and like he traveled the world and told people these things. But the weird thing is nobody ever saw him eat the food. He only ever drank from special wine bottles. And he said, "You go ahead and eat. I had something earlier." Or, "I can sustain myself on alcohol alone." You know, like, and everybody's like, "Look at this Chad," you know?
Okay, so I see where this is going.
And
well, one of two ways.
Yeah, and he's also noted for being a shameless womanizer in early 1900s.
I mean, that's
not that, like, they're probably like, "Oh, you're the man now, dog," kind of bullcrap. Well, hell, we were that way, 10 years, 15 years ago for the most part for America?
Yeah.
So he was a womanizer. But the thing is, then people go, "We only really see him at night. He doesn't really," like, we asked him to come to church, and he said, "I'm not into that. I don't prescribe to that. I am my own religion," kind of thing. And it's like, man, this dude is wild kind of shit. Like, it's the response. But then one night, a lady jumped out the second story window of his home.
Oh, no.
And the cops walking through the streets, which this is the part that's the most unbelievable to me. I believe there's a vampire in New Orleans before I would believe, even in the early 1900s, the NOPD patrolled anywhere.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Hashtag not sorry, NOPD. But she jumped out the window and claimed that he tried to bite her on the neck. Like, she knew he was a freak, but not
like that.
She was bleeding even. Like, he had bit hard enough to break the skin in some stories. Some stories she dies at the hospital later, at Charity Hospital. But
I was going to ask, is this one of the things where it's just like her body is just out there? Or
no, she talked to the cops, and the cops are like, "Hold on." And they go and knock on his door, and he comes out, bathrobe open, glass of wine, and the cops are like, "Hey,
Now I'm just picturing him as what's his name in fucking What We Do in the Shadows.
No, just think Asterion from Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, there you go.
I'm
That's
getting
a good
more
one.
vibes of that from him. Like, so it's one of those like the cops go, "Hey, this lady just jumped out the window and said you bit her neck." I got a little bit carried away in the heat of the moment, guys. A little bit of a nip and squeeze situation. And they're like, "Oh, you." However, yeah, she's actually bleeding, so we got to take her to the hospital. But tomorrow, we need you to come in and give us a statement, because right now, bro, you are way too drunk. He's like, "Yeah, I am." So I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be there. And lo and behold, we have no show at the police station.
Of course.
So eventually, the cops go into his house, and it's actually, we've gone by here a couple times. It's on the corner of Ursuline and Royal. It's a very big red brick building, Spanish architecture that is in the French Quarter everywhere. Which, anybody listening, if you didn't already know this, 90% of the French Quarter is actually Spanish architecture, because when the 1700s fire burned through, New Orleans was owned by Spain, so they rebuilt it the way that they built all their cities. So, fun little tidbit for that. But so they get in, and like, there is nothing in the house. Like, let me rephrase it. Furniture's there, but like no clothes. Like, there's no staff. Like, that's one of the weird things. Like, the staff should be here. But then they get into the wine room, and there's a couple bottles left, but it looks like a lot like they might have been left in a hurry.
Yeah.
And one of the cops, being in OPD, cracks open the bottle and takes a swig.
Oh, it's blood.
And starts to regurgitate because it's blood and absinthe.
Blood and absinthe. Wow, what a fucking party animal this guy is.
Well, some stories it's just blood, but the thing is that if you had a bottle of just blood without some other non-coagulant mixed in,
it would just coagulate.
It would just turn into sludge. But supposedly adding absinthe to the blood kept it loose and mixed enough to where it wouldn't coagulate, wouldn't freeze. Or it's just one hell of a cocktail for a vampire, I guess. And he was gone, but however, people still swear. And if you take any ghost story and they talk about it, he might be out there today, type thing. But the thing is that he's become a boogeyman in New Orleans. Like, it's like, don't walk around at night. Saint Germain's afoot. And we've been there. We know that there's people who think they're vampires walking through New Orleans.
Oh yeah, there's a whole culture there.
Well, I mean, that's also where they have the Endless Night Vampire Ball for. Used to be the Sabretooth clan, but I think the folks in New Orleans broke away But it's endless nights. It's like one of the actual big vampire balls, and we have friends that have gone to it. We got friends that worked it. Hell, I was almost security there one time. So it's one of those of there are people who actually like. There's the people who do that for fun and all that, and then there's people who actually
believe that Saint Germain is still
and
stalking the streets.
Right, and it kind of feeds in because one of the other things we'll talk about are the Ursuline monks and the casket girls, or the casquettes, which is another reason why New Orleans has this like whole vampire motif, and also like really to break it down before I get back to the point, New Orleans like one of the most European cities in the United States. It has some of that vibe.
Yeah, well, New Orleans always has like when you go to any major city, and in a way when you go to New Orleans in some places, there is like if you go to New York City, a lot of New York City looks like every other city. When you go to New Orleans, there's like a specific culture there, and I'm not saying that New York doesn't have culture. Don't come at me, anyone from NYC. But there's a specific culture there that you can instantly recognize.
It also helps that, I mean, that's, even though New Orleans really isn't the center of the francophones of Louisiana, it's still, like, you go there, most of the streets have a French spelling to their name. Or you look at the architecture once you get into the quarter and it's different. I mean, heck, you can go through the rest of New Orleans
and see a lot of different...
And still see a lot of older, different... I mean, heck, our friend Don has a basement in New Orleans.
And just in general, like, going in there and just, like, into the French Quarter, you do feel like you're transported into a different area entirely. Like,
especially at night.
Yeah. Like, you could be, you know, going into downtown New Orleans and it feels fairly modern, but then you go into, like, the French Quarter and it's like...
Yeah, once you leave the CBD and you get into the actual French Quarter, it's a completely different vibe. And if you go uptown to Carrollton, or if you get over near Audubon Park, it's still, you got some 100-plus-year-old, 200-plus-year-old houses in some places, and it's a completely different energy.
Something that it does remind me of is the colonial housing in, like, the eastern, like, the colonial states. Like, if you go to, like, Rhode Island or Virginia or places like that, you'll see, like, the colonial houses and, like, the very specifically, like, shaped houses with, like, the weird windows and shit. That's, like, being transported into that era.
This is how a story like Saint Germain can gain credence and believability, because New Orleans and some of these other places still have their old school section, their old classical areas. You could almost believe that fairy tale, that legend walks amongst it, because you're not in your normal suburban or your even if you live out in the rural areas. There is very much a generic American building style, like the ranch house. Like almost everything is a ranch or a bungalow, and that's not that energy. So you could believe Saint Germain walks the streets of New Orleans, because even in some parts of New Orleans they still have the bricks. It's not paved. It's well, I shouldn't say it's paved. It's just not asphalt.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff is like you go into certain areas and it still looks like it connects to the French Quarter, connects to the older part of the city, just by like stepping out. I don't know what I'm trying to say there. Like,
no, it's and because I mean I got a lot of the stuff that I got is going to end up coming back to the city of New Orleans, because that's like our. I'll be honest to anybody that's listening. If you're talking about a story in Louisiana, you're either going to have it happen in New Orleans or it's happening in a swamp. Like, even the Princess Frog from Disney hit those tropes, because that's considered the cultural heart of the state. But the big thing with this, with Saint Germain, he is now an urban legend. He's used to was kind of used to explain why people might just disappear.
Yeah.
And he is also responsible for a New Orleans cocktail. Do you want to hear about it?
Is it like blood and absinthe?
No. That would get you illegal, because, hey, did you know this? In the city of New Orleans, it is illegal to drink more than a pint of human blood.
That's a very specific...
Oh, no. It is a law that exists, but every time I hear it, my first thought is, God damn it, Lestat.
Well, it's also like one of those things like, don't chain your alligator to a hydrant. Like, that's a very specific... law where they had to be like, okay, someone did this dumb shit. Time to put it on the books.
Yeah. Yeah, we got that. And legit, that is, for anybody that's outside the state, that is literally a law in the city of New Orleans. It's illegal to chain an alligator to a fire hydrant. Because somebody did it. Now, here is Jacques the Elder. 2 ounces of bourbon, starting off good. 1 ounce of Saint Germain liqueur, which I believe is a hazelnut. It might be hazelnut. I think it's hazelnut. We could actually ask Bosch next door because he keeps Saint Germain to cook with.
Oh.
Then you get 1 ounce of lemon juice, 2 ounces of a ginger beer, and then you add either a lemon wedge or a piece of candied ginger to it. And I want to try this. Like, this sounds...
That actually sounds
That
really
sounds
good.
really good.
It goes in a way I didn't expect, but...
Like, I was
Sounds
really
really
expecting... And there's other ones. Like, if you go to the vampire bar, I'm sure there's the blood and absinthe one. Like, they add, like, cherry liqueur or some type of red liquor to the...
You see, that's kind of what I was expecting because of the legend, but, like, that sounds a lot better than,
This
any...
does. I like absinthe. I don't like a lot of absinthe cocktails because, like, they run on the novelty of its...
Like, of its taste.
Of its like, it's like, okay, look, don't mix Midori and absinthe.
Oh, jeez.
Like, that is a
Oh,
sweet...
no.
That's a sweet melon mixed with licorice. That is... Now, A Death in the Afternoon, which is champagne and absinthe, is pretty lovely. Just don't drink 5 of them on your birthday.
Yeah, I know, I remember that.
So...
Mister, I'm going to bite a fucking road sign.
Yeah. Yeah. Any case, I'm going to boil it down to, like, what do you think about Saint Germain with this?
I think he's very interesting. I like the idea of a man of mystery of sorts. Like, you know, he throws so much bullshit out there that it's just caused all these stories to kind of reverberate back, and now he's like this local legend in New Orleans. Maybe that's not where he thought his legacy would be, but I mean, you know, not many people have myths and legends about them. So
That's true. Now, here's the deal. I am going to go out and say something that is very odd for me. Mostly because I feel this way about Bigfoot as well. I'm going to opt to say Saint Germain is in New Orleans. Because 2 reasons. 1, it's fun. It is very fun. 2, I have also been in New Orleans at night and had the whole city go dead quiet around me for 2 blocks.
Oh yeah, that's some freaky shit.
That's terrifying because there is a predator out. That is like when the swamp or the woods go quiet. Shit.
Something's going on.
So when all of a sudden the entire city of New Orleans, which does not sleep, and I'm only a couple blocks away from Bourbon, and all of a sudden it goes dead quiet. I'm like, all right, this is the city letting me know. Go back to the hotel.
It's time to go.
I'm going to choose that was the city warning me that somebody with a bathrobe and a wine glass full of absinthe and blood was just around the corner trying to seduce me into...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, trying to seduce me into a Baldur's Gate 3 relationship that results in me dying.
Yeah, you put the Asterian thing in my head. Now I'm just picturing Asterian in New Orleans, which would be fitting.
Well, go Google him later. All the pictures, he is very Rococo, because that was the style of that point. So, and that kind of gives me the Asterian vibe, too. The feathered hair, the fancy clothes.
Well, I mean, Baldur's Gate 3, like, there's a very Rococo, Renaissance, Rococo, like, sort of that, you could tell they're pulling from both of those sort of areas, but that's for a whole other thing. Thank you, Hewitt, for this really good story.
Well, thank you for actually sitting and listening to me talk about probably the greatest French con man, might not even be French, but one of the greatest European con men of the 1700s.
French, European, American, I mean, it's all the same.
Con man vampire.
Maybe.
There we go. Yeah, if you would like to listen to this, we will have more of these up here soon. I'm not exactly sure when everything's going to be thrown into the podcatchers, but you can also find both Chris and I involved with Team Bonus Action, our RPG group who works for charity. I don't know if this will be up beforehand, but we are currently partnering with
Batson's Children's Hospital
in Jackson through the Children's Miracle Network with Extra Life. So anything donated between the months of, now in September to December will go to that and help parents not have to pay for medical bills or choose to pay between medical bills or house bills. So no parent should ever have to worry about can they take care of their child and keep a house over their head, or a roof over their head. Also, you can find us at teenbonusaction.com or on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Threads,
Hopefully Blue Sky here soon.
and Instagram as Teen Bonus Action. You can find us on Twitter as bonus_teen.
And that's us. Thank you for listening.
Y'all have a good day.